Before we start this episode, I would love to take a minute to tell you about something new and really exciting that I've been working on. I have just launched a pay what you can afford sponsorship opportunity for Show Up and Be Heard. This isn't your typical corporate sponsorship package. It's all about supporting a community of women building businesses on their own terms, whilst genuinely helping you get your business seen in the process. You'll get loads of visibility across the podcast, social media, and my email list, with ad spots, social media shout outs, and so much more. It is all designed to help you connect with the amazing women in my audience and grow your business. And the best part, like I said, it's totally accessible for businesses of all sizes, thanks to the flexible pay what you can afford model. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, I would love to hear from you. Head to www.beheardsocials.com/podcast to find out more and apply. In the meantime, though, let's get back to the episode that you came for. Today, we are talking about something that so many of us struggle with, changing your mind. Whether it's a business decision, a new offer, or even just the way you've been showing up online, or perhaps it's something in your personal life, there's often this feeling that if you change something, change the way that you're doing it, or stop doing it completely, that you've somehow failed. But one of the best lessons that I have learned in business and in life is that's just not true. In fact, knowing when to change or when to stop or when to pivot is one of the smartest, most strategic and most successful things that you can do, both in business and in life. So if you have ever felt guilty about wanting to switch things up or worried that changing your mind will make you look inconsistent or flaky, then this one's for you. But before we dive in, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to tune in to Show Up and Be Heard, the podcast that exists to help women like you simplify your business and your life so that you can stop feeling so overwhelmed. I am your host, Becci McAvoy, owner and founder of Be Heard Socials, and I am an award-winning social media marketer and international speaker who specialises in content strategy and organic growth on social media. Through this podcast, as well as my own social media, email community, and my award-winning membership, the Boss Your Socials Club, my mission is to cut through the noise to make social media marketing accessible and easy to understand for businesses that can't afford to outsource or who don't have the teams required to implement most of the advice that is being given to them. So if you want to cut through the noise and BS and get practical, actionable advice tailored specifically to make social media marketing accessible and easy to understand, or if you want to be part of a supportive community where women entrepreneurs can feel connected and inspired to achieve their dreams, then keep listening because you are in the right place. To get more tips like the ones you hear in this podcast, make sure you join my email community through the link in the show notes. Right then, let's get started with this week's episode. Okay, so I want to start this episode with a full disclaimer. I am no expert in this. I'm not a coach. I'm no expert in mindset. This is a lot of coming from my own personal experiences, my own personal thoughts, and the work that I have done on myself, of which there's been a lot over the last few years. This episode was actually sparked by a conversation with a friend this morning, and it reminded me of basically some of the work that I did do on myself a few years ago, especially around failure and on my mindset. And I think it was game changing for me and my growth in business, and also game changing for just how generally happy I was in life. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do a podcast episode on it. But like I said, I do want to disclaimer that or caveat that by saying I'm not an expert in this. This is just my own opinions, but I hope that you'll find them valuable. I hope that you will find them helpful, and I'd love to hear if you take anything away from it. So I guess a good place to start is why we so often feel like changing our minds equals failure. Because I think, I'm fairly confident in saying that most of us feel like this. And please message me if you're listening to this, message me and let me know if like I was way off the mark and you've never felt like that, or if actually it was like nail on the head, bang on. Why so many of us feel like that, because I do think lots of us do. And I think that's because from a pretty young age, we are taught that quitting equals failure, that if you start something, you should see it through. And, you know, that's fine when you're talking about, say, like finishing a book or sticking with a hobby. But even then, as well, sticking with a hobby long enough to know if you really like it. But even then, like if you do quit sooner for whatever reason or stop sooner for whatever reason, it's not always a failure. But like in those contexts, it's not, you know, like life-changing type things. But in business and in life, like things aren't that straightforward. It's not just like, oh, I'm not going to read this book anymore. I've got to be honest, I'm pretty terrible if I start a book. Even if I don't enjoy it, I do need to see it through, because often I find out that I really like the book. But like bigger decisions in business, in life, in how we run our business and our life isn't that straightforward. Your circumstances change, your priorities change. What worked for you a year ago, or even a month ago, sometimes a few months ago, might not work for you anymore. And that isn't a sign of failure, it's a sign of growth. Or maybe, sticking with something is a sign of you need to mix it up a little bit. Like maybe you've got a little bit too complacent, like not all the time, but that can come into it as well. So it's not a sign of failure, it's a sign of growth. And I think the problem is, when you've poured your energy and money into something, it's easy to feel like changing your mind means all of that effort was wasted. But that's like one of the things that I've really learned is that's just not true. That effort has helped you figure out what works and what doesn't, and it's taught you something valuable out of it. So like a good example that I would use is when I learned how to run Facebook ads and meta ads. So I paid quite a lot of money for an ads management course to teach me how to do it properly. I wanted to offer it as a service because lots of people have been telling me I should. Now there's a whole thing wrapped up in that I won't go into. But I'd done it because I was like, well, lots of people are saying this is a good idea. And it's a good way to make extra money. And at that point, like there's lots online about earning as much as you can and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I invested in this expensive ads management course, and I could tell pretty soon into it that I didn't really enjoy it, but it cost me a lot of money. And I was like, oh God, like I at least need to see this through, because, I felt bad on my husband because I'd spent the money doing it when we could have spent it on something else, etc. Anyway, long story short, I don't even think I ended up completely finishing the course. Like I did parts of the course, and basically I got out of it enough to know that if I ever want to run ads for myself, I can run those ads. But like I said, I really rapidly realized I absolutely didn't want to run ads as a service. Like I just didn't enjoy it. And, I talk a lot about running a business is hard. So let's not be our own worst boss, or let's not do stuff that we don't enjoy. So basically I never ended up doing anything with it. I never made any money out of it. Yeah, that was it. I never made any money out of it. So the money that I'd spent on it, like at the time I was like, oh God, I've wasted all that money, but I hadn't. Do you know what? It was a really valuable lesson to go, right, let me try this. And what it taught me was that I didn't want to do it. So imagine if I'd just stuck with that and gone, okay, well, I can earn some money out of it. Or I could at least earn the money back that I've spent on it. And I just spent a long time doing something that I really didn't enjoy. So yeah, so that's one example that I've got. Like another example, which I guess more ties into what I was saying about it being around growth, is how my business has evolved. So when I started Be Heard Socials, I was offering social media management, and I was only offering social media management. And I think I'd been in business probably about a year and a half, maybe a couple of years, when I thought about adding other services in. So I carried on doing social media management, but I was like, well, I want to earn like a little bit more money. And what I really enjoy is the sort of teaching, coaching, consultancy side of it. Like that stuff really lights me up. So what I added in was one-to-one services, which I still offer now, things like Instagram audits, social media power hours, that kind of thing. And that was great. I really, really enjoyed it. But again, I didn't really sell that much of them. Granted, I didn't put an enormous amount of effort into selling them, but I didn't really sell that much of them. But what I realized over time was that by doing social media management, which was great because I worked with some really great people, but took me an awful lot of time and didn't really light me up, was that I needed to do, like I couldn't do it. It took me a lot of time to do the social media management. So I couldn't really offer those other services. One of the reasons I never really promoted it was because actually I didn't really know where I'd fit it into my working week. But social media management was very time consuming, and I earned pretty good money off of it. So basically I never really sold it. So I still didn't really get to do a lot of what lit me up. And I didn't want to stop doing social media management because there were various different things in me, I guess, that was like, oh, that's, like a sign that I'm not successful if I stop doing that and I only offer that and then I'm not earning whatever money. But it wasn't, so yeah. It just wasn't a decision I made. So I stuck with it for a while. And then, long story short, what I'm getting to is what I realized was it wasn't ever really about the money for me. Don't get me wrong. I want to earn enough money that my business is viable and the time that I invest in it is valued and all of that kind of stuff. But it wasn't really ever about the money. It was about what lit me up. And what lit me up was helping people stay in business, helping small business owners that couldn't really afford to outsource. So it was never going to come to me for social media management because that's quite an investment. And I was also lit up by helping lots of people. So I started doing a content hour in someone else's membership, and it was a monthly thing. And that's what really embedded in me that I absolutely loved it. Like I look forward to that every month. It absolutely lit me up. And again, a long story short, I was like, right, well, how can I make this work? So I came up with the idea of the membership, and I'm not going to go into all the details about because that's not what this podcast is about. Although maybe I can do that if people would be interested in a future episode. But I came up with the membership and I started doing that for a while. And I loved it. And I was really glad it was something that people wanted and they bought into it. And then last year, the point I'm getting to is basically that I was like, right, if I really want to grow this or I really want to go all in on this, I just don't enjoy doing social media management anymore. But it was a scary decision because I was going to lose quite a lot of income. I was going to reduce quite a lot of the income that we had. So that was scary. But also there was a bit of me that was like, oh, what if people think, that I've failed because probably mostly on the income side of it. What if people think that I've failed because, I'm doing this membership and I'm doing what lights me up, but I'm not earning anywhere near as much as I did before. Not that people necessarily know what I earn, but there was this real feeling around failure. And basically it came from, which I'll talk about in a minute, a bit of a breakthrough, my final example of, I guess, where I've changed something or stopped something or whatever, or done something, and pushed through the fear of failure. And it was like, right, well, if I don't do this, if I don't try, I'm never going to know. So long story short, I did stop it, as you'll probably know by now if you've listened for a while. And honestly, it was really scary, but it was also the best decision I ever made because it aligned with what I really wanted, what lit me up, what I really enjoyed and what I wanted to do. And I've been able to grow it and earn slightly more money from it, which is great. Not necessarily to the levels that I was at before, but actually I looked at different things and I'm probably earning similar profit. So that's been really interesting. And I think that's the key. You are allowed to evolve. You're allowed to decide that something no longer serves you and let it go, despite what other people might think about that. So my other example that I wanted to share is, and I always use this when I am teaching the Boss Framework to people, and about showing up on social media and being on social media. So it's like a guilty confession. For the first year and a half, first 18 months or so of me having a business, I didn't have my own social media pages. And actually, this is probably the most relevant example in terms of what we're talking about in fear of failure, because that social media management stuff, obviously, there were things around that, but I did continue other services and whatever. But with this, I didn't have my own social media pages. And I was completely fine with that. Like I had a personal sort of blog page that I used. And I like that. And I sometimes spoke about my business on that, but it wasn't a business page. I wasn't doing social media marketing for my business on there. Anyway, I was having some life coaching at the time with a wonderful life coach called Kim Pritchard. She's absolutely amazing. And we were talking about this and she was like, why haven't you got your own social pages? And I had all of the excuses in the world, like literally all of the excuses in the world. It was like, well, I've got this other page that I run. And also I've got like 5 clients at the moment because I was doing social media management at the time. And I don't want another social media page to have to manage. At the time, my daughter was at nursery. So she was only there 15 hours a week. She was with me most of the time. My little boy was in reception and, I was getting used to the start of school and it's like, I just don't really have the time and I don't have all of these things. Anyway, long story short, what we drilled into, the more she asked me questions, the more I was like, I've told you the reasons why. And obviously she knew they weren't the reasons why. But what we dug into was that I was scared of failing. And because I had a life coach working with me, we dug deeper into that. And I realized that I wasn't scared of failing. Like I was okay if the social media page didn't work out, but what I was worried about was how public it was and that people could see that I had something that had failed. And she asked me at the time, so like, if you shut down your business tomorrow, would you say that you'd failed? So, and that's sort of what made me realize, it's like, oh no, it's because it's so public. So I realized I wasn't actually scared of failing. I was scared of what other people would say about that. And that just changed the game for me. Once I had the knowledge and sort of the power of like, oh, this is why I actually don't want it. And this is what I'm worried about. Not actually that it's going to fail. That in itself is like stuff fails, but is what other people are going to think about it. So yeah, I guess I just wanted to tell you that story to like share that I've been there too, like stopping and starting things and worrying about things and worrying about failure. And they're three very different examples, but I think they are good ones. I hope they are good ones. I hope they have made you think about stuff. Because like I said, like they were all scary things. So stopping the social media management was scary. Starting a social media page was scary. All of those, all the things I spoke about were scary. But they turned out to be the best decisions I ever made. And a bit like, I won't go into this because we'll be here all day of just me talking about the things I was scared of. But it was the same as me leaving my job. And actually, at the point that I'm recording this is 6 years to the day that I became unemployed for the first time. So 6 years to the day that I walked out of my job without another one to go to. Now, that is a long story that if you're interested in, I would happily do a podcast episode about. I won't go into now because it's an episode in itself. But lots of people at that point told me that I was really brave and whatever, but I'd never felt like a bigger failure because I feel like I said, like it felt like quitting, but it wasn't. It was acknowledging, like in that instance, it was like, I'm really unhappy and I need to change something. And that, like, what is more successful than that? Like to decide you want to do something to make you happier. So there's loads of different examples of things that this fits into, whether it's changing something, pivoting, stopping something completely, or whatever it might be. But I suppose what would be helpful maybe for me to share is how I tend to know when it's time to make that decision, when it's time to stop. Like I'd probably been thinking about things like the social media management for a long time before. I'd certainly been thinking about quitting my job for a long time before. And the other, I'd wanted to start my own pages, but I'd made all these excuses around it. So how do you know when it's time to pivot? Well, here are a few signs that I look out for. And when I say signs, they're probably like maybe my red flags, and I spot them much earlier now. So the first one is that I feel drained rather than energized. So if I'm working on a particular offer or project and it makes me feel tired or uninspired or even resentful sometimes, that's a big clue that it might not be the right fit for me anymore. And actually with my social media management, I'd whittled it right down to just one client. And those were some of the signs for me. I was just feeling really drained by it, quite resentful by it. That was like, right, something here needs to change. And then working out like how that can happen, because it doesn't mean you can just go, right, I'm stopping doing it from tomorrow, because obviously you need to, especially in things like that, you need to make it financially viable. But just going, knowing it's time to change, it means that you can then make a plan. And what I would say in that as well is that it's not like, there used to be this running joke, especially when I was whittling my social media clients down, that if I was unhappy, I'd just sack someone. And I wasn't ever really sacking them, but like I'd give them notice. But actually for me, it's like, I don't want to spend my time or energy on things that are making me unhappy or draining me, or making me resent running my own business, because it should be the best thing that we do. What I will say in that is, obviously there are times, sometimes I have to go back into like my mindset toolbox and do a little bit of work and dig into what I'm actually thinking, because for me it's about when feeling drained rather than energized becomes the rule rather than the exception. Like even Boss Your Socials Club will sometimes leave me feeling drained because it's hard work, but I know that that is absolutely by far the exception, that I feel like that. I absolutely love it. Most of the time it lights me up. So it's not like, oh, I feel drained by this today, so I'm going to stop it and I'm going to change. But it's when it becomes the rule rather than the exception. So another red flag or sign for me is if I'm not seeing the results I expected from something. So sometimes things don't work out the way that we hoped, and that's okay. If you've given something a fair shot and it's not clicking, it's worth reassessing. It's a little bit like I said about the ads course. I didn't see the results I expected from it. I didn't enjoy it. There were lots of things sort of wrapped up in that. like I gave it a fair shot. I stuck with the course. Like I said, I don't think I completed it, but I did stick with the course. I gave it a fair shot and it wasn't clicking. So I reassessed what I wanted to do with that and decided, like I said, I did learn stuff out of that, like learn stuff out of it that helped me with my social media in general. So it wasn't like I got nothing out of it. I just didn't get the end result that I wanted out of it. It was a really good course. I just didn't get the end result I'd initially wanted out of it. And I reassessed that and was like, do you know what? That's okay. So, when you're not seeing the results you expected, don't stick with it just because you don't want you're worried about what other people will think, or you don't want to look like you failed. Like, I just think that's a really strong decision that you can make. And actually, I was similar with my membership. I started that up, and initially I said, and I was the same with the podcast as well, actually. I said, I'm going to do this for a year and I'll see how long it takes me, how much time it makes me, what return I get from it, not just financially, but how much I enjoy it, all that kind of stuff. And actually, thankfully, with both of those things, I've absolutely loved them. But if it came to a point where I needed to stop, I would stop. And I've done that actually in my email marketing recently. I've reduced how much I'm emailing and different things like that. And it's because, is it the best use of my time, or could I spend it elsewhere? And is it leaving me feeling drained rather than energized more often than it's not? So yeah, another red flag could be, this is probably more of a sign than a red flag, but your audience or market has changed or shifted. So, businesses do evolve. Your audience's needs change. If you're finding that what used to work isn't working anymore, it might be time to realign. It might be time to slightly change the service that you're offering. I do that where I tweak Bossy Socials Club and things in it, for example, to fit with what people need the most. So yeah, if your audience or your market has shifted, that could be another sign that it's a good idea to pivot or to change or to stop and start something new or whatever it might be. And then finally, talking about your audience might have shifted or changed, but you might have changed. And this for me is the biggest one. If you have grown, learned new skills, or realized that you are passionate about something else, it's a perfectly good reason to stop doing something, to change the way you do something, or to pivot. And I think that was probably the biggest thing with me with finishing the one-to-one social media management services was I changed. I'd been in business. If I stopped it last year, I'd been in business for coming up to 5 years, and I had changed and I'd evolved and I'd invested a lot in myself, in my mindset, my skills, all of that kind of stuff. And it meant I could put it into helping more people through a membership. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest ones for me. If you have grown, if you've learned new skills, or you've just realized that you want to do something different, it is perfectly okay to change. And like not everybody might be happy about that, and that's okay. Like as long as you kind in the way that you do it, are thoughtful in the way that you do it, and you communicate it well. Like if you've got current clients, example, if you're, stopping a service, or, if you're changing things, if I change things in Bossy Socials Club, it might be that, in fact, actually, that's another example. See, I've got loads of examples of this. I do it a lot. And I think that's why I wanted to do this podcast episode, because I want you to really shift on from feeling like you failed and just realize that you're just trying new things. And when one chapter closes, it doesn't mean that you failed. But in Bossy Socials Club recently, so we used to have a Facebook Live Q&A. And in February this year, I believe it was, I changed it to a private podcast. And that was for a whole number of reasons. So partly it was that some people found it difficult to follow the Facebook Live Q&As. Some of my members weren't on Facebook, so it meant that they could never listen to the Facebook Live Q&As. There was always glitches as well with Facebook where people could watch it live and ask questions, but I didn't necessarily always see the comments. Facebook has changed the way that they're doing Facebook Live Q&As. Anyway, so I changed it to a private podcast. Now, I don't know, actually, the feedback that I've got is that everybody loves it, which is obviously a good thing. But there might be the odd one or two people that preferred it as a Facebook Live Q&A. But as long as I have communicated my reasons for that, the reasons are that it's in the best interest of the members. It's not just that I don't want to do the Facebook Live Q&A anymore. It's about the experience of the members, all that kind of stuff. They've now got this private podcast. There's loads of benefits to that. Then as long as I've communicated that, like it is my business and I can make that decision. Obviously, I want to do that based on feedback. And if the majority of people have hated it, then I would probably have changed back. But yeah, it's, things can change and they are all good reasons to pivot. It is not about giving up. It's about recognizing when something no longer serves you and making a conscious decision to change that and do something different. So I would say I do this quite easily now, a little bit too easily probably. But don't get me wrong, like I'm still human, so I still feel some of that stuff. But I think the more you embrace that and do it, the easier it becomes. But I know certainly when I was like, I don't want to say at the start of this journey because that always sounds, I just don't like, anyway, at the start of this journey of like trying to embrace failure, I guess, and be comfortable and more confident in myself with these decisions, it was important to me to find ways to do it without feeling like I'd failed. So, if you have decided that it's time to change direction, how do you actually make that shift without feeling like you've let yourself or anyone else down? Because it's easy for me to say, it's fine, just do it. But we are all human. We do feel like that. Even when I stopped the social media management services, for example, there was I felt a lot of guilt with that. And there were tears over it, and there were worries over it, and all that kind of things. And there were points that I felt really bad on the clients that I'd given notice to. So, like I said earlier, you are not quitting, you are refining, I guess. So, reframe it as a step forward, not a step backwards. You have gained knowledge and experience that will serve you in whatever you are choosing to do next. And changing your mind is a sign that you are listening to yourself and being strategic. And that is what all business owners should be. And like I said, the second thing I'm going to talk about is communicate with confidence. So people might not like what you're going to hear, but it's okay. Communicate with confidence and be really clear in that. If you're changing an offer or shifting your business model, tell your audience or your clients, if it's one-to-one, why you're doing it, and be really honest and clear about that. You don't need to over apologize. You don't actually need to apologize at all, but you certainly don't need to over apologize. And I've definitely been very guilty of that in the past. And that's probably the thing I still struggle with the most, is apologizing or over apologizing and justifying myself constantly. You don't need to apologize or over apologize, absolutely. And you don't need to justify yourself. People are far more understanding than we give them credit for, especially when you explain why this new direction will serve you better, or why you're making it, or why it might serve them better. Maybe not in the instance where you're stopping stuff, but why it might serve them better. So, like, for example, the changes in Boss Your Socials Club, etc., or the changes to other different things. People are more understanding than we give them credit for. And if they're not, that is very rarely about you. And it's more often than not something going on with them. And that's not your responsibility. And again, I struggle with that. I am a recovering people pleaser, but it's not your responsibility to manage other people's emotions and reactions to the decisions that you make about what you want to do with your business and with your life. And that's a hard thing to get on board with, but I think you only really get the confidence from doing that by doing it. So yeah, it's something you learn to, like I said, I wouldn't say I've lost the guilt completely, but it's definitely something you learn to find a little bit easier the more you do it and the more you make decisions for yourself. Also, trust yourself. You know your business and your life better than anyone else. So if something doesn't feel aligned, you have every right to change it. Even if other people don't get it at first, that's all right. You are building a business and a life that works for you, not for anyone else. And people might not get that. They might not ever get that. That's fine. The thing that you are changing to might not work out, and that is fine as well. At some point, I might go back to doing one-to-one social media management services. That won't mean that I failed because I stopped doing it and then I started doing it again later. I just did what worked for me at the time. And that's what I'm doing, building a business and a life that works for me in the present. And obviously, like, I do think about the long-term future, but in the present. So you are building something that ultimately works for you, not for anyone else. And, the other thing that I would say that I have learned from doing this stuff is ask people for their opinions, because people's opinions are valuable. But remember, they are people's opinions. They are not facts. And probably try not to ask too many people. Ask people that you really trust and really value. But even if they turn around and say, no, I think that's a terrible idea, if you think it's a good idea, give it a go. Because what is the worst that's going to happen? It's not going to work out, and you've tried it, and you've put your all into it, and you've given it a go, which is braver than most people are. So try it, and if it doesn't work out, go back to what you were doing before, or go on to something slightly new. But be brave enough and bold enough to live the life that you want to live. There's a Mel Robbins quote that was recently shared by my lovely friend Wendy, and I can't remember exactly what it is. I wish I'd got it up, but it was something like, you have one beautiful, precious life. So for God's sake, live it in the way that you want to live it. That's not the quote. The quote was way more poetic than that. But live it in the way that you want to live it. And the worst that's going to happen is it doesn't work out and you try something new, or you go back to what you were doing before. You know, like, it's like starting a business, isn't it? If you start a business and it doesn't work out and you go back to being employed, like, that is okay if you've made the best decision for you and if you've given it your best shot. We need to stop worrying about what, like I said, you might not be like me. For me, it was what other people thought of the failure. But as soon as I knew that, the more I could sort of like embrace it and lean into it. So on that note, I want to talk about why changing your mind is a strength and one of the most successful things that you can do. Because changing your mind, like, I mean, I've said this countless times already in the episode, but it's absolutely not a weakness. It is a strength. It takes serious courage to say, this isn't working for me anymore and I'm not doing it. And I think probably my best example of that is when I left my job, because at that point I didn't have another job to go to. I hadn't planned to set up a business. I was just like, I just can't do this anymore. It is making me miserable and I'm walking away from it. And, you know, people told me I was brave at the time. I've never felt more like a massive failure. But when I look back at it, I was like, geez, you were like, that was a serious amount of courage and bravery to do that. So it takes confidence to walk away from something that you have invested in. And it takes real strategic thinking to recognize that success isn't about sticking with something forever. It's about building something sustainable. I see this with other businesses all the time. I see this with members all the time. I see this with my friends all the time. And, you know, like, sometimes it's in business and sometimes it's in life, but they will come and say, oh, I'm thinking about this thing, but I don't know, or it's not quite working, or what do I do? And I always just think, like, the best advice is, well, it's okay to change it if you want to. It's okay to stop and try something else if you want to. That's not a failure. That is always growth. Even if you go back to doing the thing that you gave up originally, it's growth and it's strength that it takes to do that. So changing your mind is absolutely a strength. And I honestly think knowing when to quit is one of the most successful things that you can do. And if I'm honest, again, it's not for this episode, tell me if you'd like me to talk more about it. I should have left my job way earlier. Like, I pushed myself, and I've been open about this in various different places, to the point of a breakdown, which it took a long time to come back from. I made myself really sick. I should have left sooner. And I think the reason that I'm more freely changed my mind now and stop things is because I am never willing to let myself get to that point again. And I am never willing to make myself that miserable again. And I don't want you to get to the point that that's what makes you change your mind. That's what makes you do something about it. Like, learn the red flags. And some of those will be in the signs or the red flags that I gave earlier. Just think about those things and change before you make yourself sick, basically, which is what I did. Okay, let's simplify it a little bit. If you are feeling stuck or unsure right now, here's what I want you to remember and think about. I almost don't want to say this because I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it's important. Changing your mind isn't failure. It's strategy, and it's a strong sign of success and courage. You are allowed to evolve and you are allowed to grow. And you absolutely need to trust yourself, especially when you're running a business. The most important thing you can do is trust yourself, because you have to be bold enough to make those decisions. You are building a business and a life that works for you. And that means it's going to change and it's going to grow alongside you. So take a deep breath, give yourself permission to pivot or to change, and know that you are not starting over. You are building on everything you have already learned. So yeah, I hope that is helpful. I hope you've taken stuff from that. As always, I'd love to know your key takeaways. If you're listening to this episode and you liked it, I would love you to take a screenshot of it and share it with somebody, or share it on your socials, or send the link to an episode to somebody that you feel might need to hear it, because it helps me grow my audience, obviously, and it helps show up and be heard. But also it spreads the love and it brings the message to other people that might need to hear it. So yes, I would be very, very eternally grateful if you would do any of those things. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am truly grateful for your time and your energy today. I know that you've got a million things on your plate, and the fact that you're here investing your time into something that will help your business and your socials grow is something I am really proud of you for. Before you go though, if you love this podcast and you're a woman running a small business who wants to make social media easier and business life less lonely, I've got something for you that I want to tell you a little bit more about. The Boss Your Socials Club is here to bring you inspiration, accountability, confidence, and community. It's a place where we ban the word should because we believe in bespoke advice that will work for you, your circumstances, your life, and your business. As a member, you get a clear content plan every month, ready to use templates, and the accountability to actually show up. Plus, you'll have expert support and a community of incredible women who get it and who want to cheer you on and support you in your business journey. And we all need a bit of that. Think of it like having a teeny tiny social media marketing expert in your pocket, giving you the knowledge and the assurance when it comes to posting great, engaging content on your social media platforms and showing up in a way that grows your business without the overwhelm and with a community of women cheering you on. Whether you're just getting started or looking to take your social media to the next level, Boss Your Socials Club has everything you need. You can join from just £24 a month or save with an annual membership, which is £240 for the year, so you get 2 months free. Thank you again for being here today, and I can't wait to catch you in the next episode. Until then, keep showing up, and please always remember, realising that you're not actually meant to do this stuff alone is the first step to making it easier. So I'll see you next time.